Carl and Brendan here from Games, Brains and Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial.com for short. And it is that time of the year. It is the end of the year. And you know what that means? That means we have top lists to give you. This one, you've seen the title. It is our top 10 favourite live performances of 2022. Seen a fair few. Not as many as I have in most other years, to be fair. Bit mixed all over the place, but throw in a couple of festivals as well with plenty of bands, seeing the likes of Slam Dunk and at Bloodstock this year as well. Coming up with 10 was fairly straightforward for me. How about you?
Yeah, it was, until you just said that. I completely forgot about Slam Dunk.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. No Slam Dunks in this, and that's purely because I can barely remember a thing about it, let alone whether there were good performances.
But yeah, no, same. I feel the same about it. Or like, I feel like, it's kind of weird. Obviously, I saw more bands last year than I did probably the year before. So that's where, like, it still feels like it's not quite like there are points in this year where we still had a few cancellations, a few things like that. So it's been an improvement, but it's not quite back up to pre-pandemic sort of normality levels just yet. That hopefully next year.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the first couple of shows I think I've got in 2023 in January and February-ish time are two immediately gigs that were supposed to take place in 2022. So, that's it. Stuff still being moved around. But we have come up with 10 each. So we're going to run it through from 10 down to what each other's favourite show of the year is, live performance of the year. For those who've never seen these videos before, we've done them a few years in a row now at the end of the year. We don't confer. So whatever Brendan's got, I have no clue. Whatever I've got, he has no clue. It's simply, well, I don't think we've ever had the same number one. And I know 100% we will not have the same number one this year.
Do you? 100%. Is that what, because you think you know what my number one is?
No, because I remember a conversation about my number one. That's why.
Right. Yeah,
right, I'll get us started then. Yeah. Go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think like for the people watching, obviously not all, but we do go to a lot of the same shows. So there is often crossover, but not necessarily in positioning. It's always quite interesting.
I think the ones I've got 3 from Bloodstock. So I think a couple of at least 2 of them will probably be the ones we match up on. At least 2. I've got 4 from Bloodstock. But anyway, number 10. Right. So number 10, and I'll admit I'm kind of cheating here because although I'm choosing 2 bands from the same show. They were on at the same show, and I couldn't decide between the 2. So on the 6th of February 2022 at the Black Heart in London, Necronautical performed there, and one of the support bands was Wolven Crown. I'd never seen either I'd seen Necronautical live before, but I'd never seen Wolven Crown, and I loved them. I loved them both. Different as well, like 2 very different bands as well. Obviously in the heavier side of music, Black and Death and stuff like that. But yeah, in the Black Heart, decently busy, but not like crazy packed as we've seen in the Black Heart before. So it was nice for that experience. And seeing Necronautical in that venue was a real joy for me. But having Wolven Crown there as well, where I sort of just stood there quite mesmerized by their sound of music. That's why I couldn't decide between the 2. And I thought, you know what? They're at the same gig. I'm putting them both in. So that's my number 10.
Wow. That's changed the rules, hasn't it?
It has a bit, yeah.
I'm just looking through my list, thinking about the other bands I'm going to add into each one of these. Now, so my number 10 is my first Bloodstock one. I kind of realized when I'd done, I can't, with this list, like I think the first sort of 5 or 6 I kind of already knew, although I was debating like a couple of positions, and then when I got to the end of it and I had 1 position left, and I was like, I didn't have any new blood bands on here, but I'd had such a good time in there, so I was racking my head back, like thinking about the ones that we've seen and the ones that had left the best impression, and I settled on Imperium as being the most memorable.
Okay,
as in even now a fair few months after the event, very much remembering the show, remembering having a great sort of time at it, and being quite surprised because I hadn't heard Imperium before, even though they were London's kind of Metal to the Masses winner, but I didn't really know a lot about them, but just really, really enjoying it. Big kind of chunky grooves. And feeling at the end of it like they surpassed a lot of the bands on the bigger stages over that weekend. I remember like rushing across to get some merch, and there being like a massive collection of people all sort of like fighting for the last t-shirts that were being packed away at the time, and they were like, oh shit, quickly get them all back out again. But yeah, so Imperium's my number 10. The most memorable of the new blood bands that I saw that weekend.
Yeah, certainly the memorability. I remember quite a bit from that as well. I don't know what it was. I guess sometimes it just works like that, not just for the band, but for us as well. The connection just works so nicely. Yeah, I won't say any more than that at the moment. Right, number 9. And this is, I promise, the last time I technically cheat, because I've done it again. 2 bands from the same show. The same show, but it's the last time, I swear. And this was on the 26th of May, 2022 at the Black Heart in London. And I went to see Casket Video and a number of support bands with them. This was their album launch show for the new album. So I was really excited for it. And Casket Video were excellent. I can't believe how good this band are. And live, they absolutely pulled out. The new album's a banger. Live, they proved it as well. But on that bill was a band I'd never heard of before called Chewing Glass Collective. And they blew my fucking mind. It was one of those amazing things where I was with my wife and she was like, it's fucking nonsense. It's just noise. She didn't like it. And I'm just like, oh my God, that is like the best thing ever. Like, I loved it so fucking much to the point where initially when I did this list, I was like, oh, I should probably put Chewing Glass Collective instead of Casket Feeder. But I was like, no, they're so good and they're on the same bill. So together, having both of them, I mean, the other bands were great as well. AWOP was a surprise, a lovely surprise as well. But Chewing Glass Collective.
Are you adding them as well now?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Because that was a funny one as well. It was quite punk. And no one had turned up at that point. So it was like 6 or 7 people in that room. And it was like one of those, but they were great and they did a bloody good job, the best they could. But you know when it's like, oh man, this is empty and this is like awkward kind of thing. But yeah, so my number 9 is Casket Feeder and Chewing Glass Collective from that same show. Last time, I swear.
My second band on my list. I'll do it that way. If we do it as a countdown at bands, let's see how many Carl ends up at. So my second show, 10th of September 2022 at the OVO Arena, Wembley Arena, as it's more commonly known in London. And this was the Vikings and Lionhearts tour, and the band from it is Machine Head. So obviously goes without saying that I like Machine Head. I guess this was quite like, firstly, I had a really great time. And Machine Head live, doesn't matter what you do or don't think about Machine Head, like how you feel about them, anything like that. They do know how to work a crowd and how to put on a live show. But also this was kind of like a bit cathartic, what I did there for me. Because, coming into this, there's been like a few dodgy releases. There's been a lot of change, a lot of stuff like you don't really know what's going on. And while I'd never really doubted that they'd be able to pull it off live, I don't know, it's just weird, it just didn't really know like what was going on. Then obviously when they announced the tour and it wasn't an evening with, it was like, okay, it had promise, but it was interesting to see how it would go down. Had the new album out not long before that, although to be fair, I think they didn't really play bugger all from the new album. I think they played like 1 track, if I remember correctly.
Like 1, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. But I had a fucking great time.
Yeah,
I had a really, really good time. I thought they sounded fiery and fired up, and they were on it. It was a great show all round. Like, don't get me wrong, I thought like we didn't really get much of the Halo effect. Unfortunately, we caught like the last track, maybe track and a half. It sounded fucking great for that. I bet we would have wish I'd seen more.
Yeah.
And Amon Amarth were visually spectacular. But like, I don't know, I felt like it was a bit cathartic, like watching Machina come out with a bit of fire and the new band and really kind of going for it and like dropping. Obviously they got such a large catalog, it's hard. They'd have to really, really work very hard to play a set that didn't have songs in it that I like.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They'd have to really fucking be dredging like, like we're going to do the back end of Supercharger only or something like that.
Yeah, because I was about to say, even if you start doing like pulling songs from Supercharger, you're like, well, no, if they do like
like a bulldozer
stuff,
or something like that, and I'm like, banging. Like we both like the Burning Red. It's like you can't really do much wrong there. You'd have to literally go for like 3 or 4 songs from maybe some of the later albums and only play them ones somehow. So, but it was more like I don't know, them coming out fired up. They looked energized and they kind of went, especially at the beginning of it, they kind of went like 3 or 4 tracks straight up without Rob even really talking to the crowd. Just heavy song after heavy song.
Yeah.
Which it felt a little like seeing an old school kind of Machine Head gig, like from a long time ago. Where
it felt like a reboot.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, and it felt good, and I had a really, really good time. Having said that, they make it to 9th on the list, whereas I guess in days gone by, you see Machine Head in the year, it's probably my number 1. So but it was a very enjoyable show.
No, I get it. It what did cross. It hasn't entered my top 10, but it certainly crossed my mind because my kind of feeling was more about the fact that I thought at this stage, by the time I went to the show, that I was maybe not over machining, that's the wrong word, but like over seeing them live, that maybe I could do with a lengthy break from seeing them live. And I ended up having a thoroughly good time. I thought they were the best band we saw. I thought they were better than Amon Amarth,
Yeah,
you know, musically. And yeah, so I thought it was a great show too, but just didn't cut the top 10. Right. Number 8, and it is just one band. This event took place at a corporation in Sheffield on the 25th of June, 2022, and it is Aeonia Fest 4. Yes, all right, 4. Yeah, it was 4. The festival headlined and run by the symphonic progressive metal band Aeonia. And on that bill, now it was a bit of a mixed bill. There were stuff I liked, stuff I didn't really care for, stuff I couldn't quite as get into. They only were fantastic and all that. But I remembered one band in particular that were on early in the night, in the day, and brought it a fucking A game. So much so that, like, thoroughly impressed. It was a band we were aware of, a band we knew, a band we'd seen before as they took part in Metal to the Masses Essex. It's Walk in Coma. I thought they did a spectacular job. Enough so that I remember a ton of details about their show. And, like, you know, playing to a kind of half full room, giving it their all, particularly in the day. I think at this point it was maybe about 4 or 5 o'clock, so it wasn't even that late in the night. Bitten so no one was pissed up or drunk or anything. Fucking loved it. Really remembered it. Number 7, Walk in Coma.
It's a great shout.
Sorry, that's number 8, not 7. Number
I don't
8,
know what's
not
happened
7.
to me here. I forgot I went to Slam Dunk and I forgot I went to Aeonia Fest.
Oh, okay.
Been sitting there thinking, God, I've only went to Bloodstock and these other gigs. How am I going to pick from this? But yeah, Walk in Coma, good shot. Okay, so my number 8 is back to Bloodstock. One of 2 times I saw this band this year, so I was weighing up really between which performance I felt I had enjoyed the most, and this is Red Method. So we saw them at Bloodstock. Obviously, we also saw them at the what's it called, the Monstrous Sabbath with Cradle at the O2. I felt like the Bloodstock performance for me was a bit better. Not anything on them. I thought they sounded great at both, but more I felt like the Bloodstock crowd was a bit more into it, whereas they were a bit sort of static. And I guess also seeing Red Method on the main stage is kind of cool. And you know, and also because they were on the main stage, you know, there was a lot of a little bit of performance sort of stuff going on as well, weren't there? You know, like the flares and on people's shoulders around the mosh pit and stuff like that. So when I looked back at them, I was like, I'm pretty sure Red Method was going to be in my list, but it was just really balancing out the 2. And yeah, so Red Method at Bloodstock.
Oh, yep, good shout. Okay, number 7 for me, actually number 7. And you've already mentioned them. They played the New Blood stage at Bloodstock Festival 2022 on the 13th of August 2022. It's Imperium, the New Blood band, the only New Blood band I have on this as well. I also did the same. I kind of came up with a few that I remember quite enjoying over the weekend, and I wrote them down and I said, okay, which is it going to be? Which one am I going to give a shout? I wanted to give another band a shout. But considering, you know, that band is basically no more, or at least as it is now, it's kind of like it felt a bit like disingenuous to kind of put it down now. So I thought Imperium, yep, absolutely. That was a band, like I said, knew the name, Metal to the Masters London winners, so knew they had something about them, and just that was 30 minutes that just connected wonderfully with us, man. Really fucking did. Gave it the raw, proper fiery shit, and yeah, just thoroughly enjoyed it. So Imperium for number 7.
Cool. And excuse me, my number 7. Back to the O2, the Indigo O2, I should say, not the actual O2. Maybe one day, you never know, but it's unlikely. And that is Cradle of Filth.
Unlikely, yeah.
Never know. Something might happen. The world might change. All of a sudden, people at Cradle are playing to whatever it is, 60, 70,000.
Good
God.
God.
I don't even know how many that place holds, but a lot.
Yeah, it's like 2022, I think. So it's still way too many. Yeah.
But, you know, like they obviously, it's their show, you know, they're headliner of it. They kind of arrange it and whatnot. I think we spoke about the show before when it happened, or probably in the review, but you know, it's kind of cool being, you know, in Greenwich, which is local, or as local really as we can get for a reasonable sized venue. I've seen Cradle a million times, it feels like sometimes, but I always enjoy it. I always do. And I thought they again were phenomenal here. Feel like Danny's vocals the last few times I've seen them are even more on point now than they were when, like, I remember seeing him when I was much younger. You know, I think he sounds great. The new songs are great. The album's great. The band, you know, I'm a massive fan. I'm a massive fan, and every time I see them, I guess kind of like the Machine Head thing sometimes. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm going to watch Cradle one day and I'm going to be like, I've seen this all a bit too much, but it's never happened. I always come out of it like, yeah, that was fucking amazing. Again, it helps with the catalog, you know, and obviously the new album's still relatively fresh.
Yeah.
You know, so and they did play quite a lot of songs from it. So yeah, you know, all in all, just another phenomenal show. And also being like, I mean, lots of little things happened to that show that like made it really like great for me. Firstly, my missus wasn't drinking, which meant I got driven there and driven back. I could, which was quite nice, and I could drink what I wanted. You know, like I said, there were other bands there that were very, very good. Some like
Yeah.
strange stylings in terms of the lineup, but they were all very, very good. And then Cradle coming out with loads of pyro and fire and effects and silly statues on the edge of the stage and all that sort of stuff. You know, it was great show, and Halloween as well.
It was a unique show. That's what I kind of remember from it as well. It's not the kind of thing I expect to happen often, if ever again. So it's kind of like, well, that was cool. That was cool. Okay. You know, as I said at the start, we don't confer. We just sometimes happen to match up in many different ways. And this is my number 6 is this example. Exactly. In fact, I also went through the exact same debate where I said, okay, this band's going in the list, but which performance do I want? It is Red Method. And I've chosen their Bloodstock performance. And everything Brendan said is basically what I would have said as well. For me, the reason being is because it was main stage. It was the right crowd, hungry for this. Not so busy that I, though, personally couldn't get involved a bit more. I was able to get into the pit. I was able to actually do one of my very rare these days circle pit moments to Red Method, the flares, the pageantry that exists in that band being shown a bit more on this big stage. It kind of felt like a bigger deal. Even though, as you already said, the Monstrous Sabbat show was impressive in itself as well because of what that stage is and where it is. But yeah, I just think Red Method at Bloodstock 2022, that was the one of the two that I preferred. So that's my number 6.
Cool. My number 6 then. Ward 16.
Okay.
This is at the Electro Works in London on the 15th of April. Small little venue. But it was a great venue for this show. And I'm not putting a second band on this, but I just remember, like, I was just thinking back on this the other day when I was putting the bands in order, and I can't even remember what they were called, so apologies for that. But they're also the band that like supported Ward 16 that came out that were very kind of theatrical and had like all the sort of speeches and things along the side of it. So I was thinking about, I couldn't remember what they were called, but anyway, they were really cool too. But this wasn't the first time seeing Ward 16, but the only other time I'd seen them had been at Bloodstock, which was a very, very impressive showing. But I remember at the time seeing them at Bloodstock. I enjoyed it. I wasn't blown away, and that was probably because I just hadn't listened to any of their stuff really by then. And not very much anyway. So I was watching it for the first time. I was enjoying the theatrics and that, but I didn't really click with the music. So by the time this show had come back round, I'd become much more of a fan of them musically as well. So it was much more exciting to go and see them bigger time, which meant that, you know, even from the theatrical side of it, there was a lot more of it. But I also now really enjoyed the music. So now I was able to not just enjoy the visual, do you know what I mean? I was also able to really get into it. I thought they were great. Lots of cool things happened at it. I spent a fucking fortune on merch. And like, honestly, ridiculous numbers. I've got drumsticks here, jackets, fucking everything, man. Hamsters with Ward 16 on them, all whatever the hell they were selling. But I remember it now, like visually. I remember like where we were standing on the floor. I remember all little moments throughout it. You know what I mean? It's very, very visual, but like it was just different to the Bloodstock performance because I was now also like clicked with the music. So so my 6th on the list.
Well, this is awkward because my 5th on the list is Ward 16 at the Electric Works in London on the 15th of April 2022. It's, again, I'm echoing everything you said. This was a blast for me. I had more experience with the new at the Bloodstock one, and I do have a lot of memorability for that. But this being their actual show, their main show, more than 30 minutes on the Sophie Lancaster stage, and a small place like the Electric Works with a crowd that was hot for them as well. Like everyone was there. Like I remember that circus ring dance thing, you know, quite vividly. That was a lot of fun. It felt like everybody was smiling and having a great time. But on stage, the music and how it sounded was coming across fantastic, as well as the theatrics amongst that. And it's just one of those really, because I can't even say local band, because it's not local to us, but, you know, an underground band, just, you know, doing the rounds, working hard, coming to all the way to London, getting a strong reception and showing why that, like, their name matters, their name has value. And yeah, so I really enjoyed it too. It's why it's number 5.
Beat me by 1.
Yes.
All right, so my number 5, I am back at Bloodstock.
Mm-hmm.
And this time it's for a main stage band, and it's Cattle Decapitation. So this is a bucket list band for me. It's a band that I've been very much fallen in sync with throughout really the Death Atlas cycle, mostly, and then kind of working backwards and becoming more and more and more of a fan. I've been waiting to see them for a long time. I'd like many different occasions where I was going to go to see them, but the gigs were pulled and cancelled and not able to go ahead for the reason we all know. So this was like, you know, finally getting to see them. So it was exactly what I hoped for. Obviously, you know, I'll be lying if I said I want, you know, I'm still waiting for that indoor sort of hour and a bit long sort of show, you know, but considering I waited so long to see them, then getting to actually see them there. And, you know, for me, I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, but for me, I thought they sounded brilliant. Played some of my favorite songs, which was also great from the Death Atlas cycle. And yeah, just really enjoyed it and can't wait to see them again in you know, hopefully a smaller venue with dedicated fans.
Yeah, they need to rebook that tour, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is where we're going to start to deviate a little bit down as we get into the top 4 area. Although I have, while you were talking there, I have just clocked what your number 1 is. I know it now. I'm sure of it. Number 4 for me, the Boston Music Rooms in London on the 4th of August, 2022. I went to see Ithaca play there. Ithaca coming off the back of the new album, They Fear Us. You know, I could have cheated here and added Pupil Slicer to this as well, but I think I might have enjoyed Pupil Slicer more Bloodstock, but that's by the by. It was Ithaca. This is my first time seeing Ithaca. I've really got to know them over the last year, particularly with the release of They Fear Us. I'd done an interview earlier in the day as well, so I was kind of buzzing from that. And they were just fucking immense, you know, the stage presence of that band in that wonderful venue. I have memories of it in such ways as well, because it seems like there was a lot of, I don't say industry, but there were a lot of people there within PR and the industry, if you want, as it were, people that I had spoken to for so many years via email, who suddenly I was meeting for the first time. And that was kind of cool and fun as well. And it kind of, but then I thought about it after and was like, good God, this must be really a big deal. Like, this must be a thing if like everyone's popping down to come see Ithaca, that kind of thing. There was a sold out gig in the end as well, Boston Music Room. So you can certainly tell they're going up and up and up and up. Yeah, so Ithaca at Boston Music Room, amazing.
Cool. So my 4th on the list is Zeal and Ardor at Electric Brixton on the 13th of November. You know, I mean, I wrote this down. I don't know if it's actually true or not, but I wrote down that I reckon I could watch Zeal and Ardor once a month and still not feel that I'd seen them too much, such as like how good they are on stage. And Zeal, I guess, because I have seen them a lot, considering they're a band they're an experienced band now, but you know, they haven't been around for like 20 years or anything like that. But I feel like I've seen them more than some bands that I've loved for longer.
I felt like this was your 4th or 5th time.
Yeah, I think it was 5th, maybe, or 4th. It was one of the two, but yeah. But you know, they've had a banging new album out this year, so I was looking forward to it. But like, there were points, like, do you know what I mean, where it was like cold. It was like on the November, it was a Sunday night.
Yeah.
We were going to like a smaller like a venue I didn't know, that sort of thing, where you're kind of like, oh God. So you kind of go into some of these gigs sometimes with a slightly, not exactly pessimistic, but like, you know, maybe not quite as motivated as you might hope to be if it had been like a Friday night or a Saturday night, you know, that sort of thing. But I loved it. Again, I had an absolute blast. Venue was okay, you know, typical venue, really. It was all right. Well, busy. Thought they were phenomenal. The new stuff sounded great. And came out of it again just fucking thinking about how amazing I think this band are and are going to be if they continue on the same sort of consistent quality of output, you know.
Yeah, it was a great show. I didn't make my top 10 because I kind of judged it on other little small things, which is I didn't really love the venue in the end, and obviously there were 6 members. So we get, a little bit was missing. Number 3 then on my list, and we're at Bloodstock for Avatar. Avatar's my 3rd on the list, top 3 shows this year. So this was Avatar on the Sophie Lancaster stage, a spot that when they were announced and for it made them go, really? Oh, okay. We've been putting them as potential headliners of this festival. But, it was answered pretty quickly that apparently this was all because the band wanted to play, and this is where they fit and so on, that kind of thing. And what we got was a very unique, unexpected, and maybe you may never sort of see Avatar show again that was very, very stripped back to the point where they couldn't even put lights up because the lights, we watched this part where the lights apparently, or the backdrop, sorry, was too heavy for the lighting rig and stuff like that. And from the moment it opened, you knew in for something special because they came out and in marching formation and stood in this center back to back in like a square, playing sort of cutbacks, scale back instruments. And it was so very, very unique. But it was a set list. It was the set list of just pure brilliance Avatar, an hour of just proper best of Avatar songs. It was spectacular. It could have easily been my top 2 or number 1 gig of the year. And we may never see Avatar like this again. And that will always stand out for me. So that's my 3rd.
They may feature on my list.
Mm.
Okay, so my 3rd is another band I've seen twice this year. And I had to decide which one was the preferred show. And it was actually a really hard decision this time because one of them I was at on my own and the other one I was at Bloodstock.
Right.
A collection of people. But weirdly, I ended up choosing the one where I was on my own. Sorry to all of you people that I was with. But and that was just because it was the first time seeing them, Dark Tranquillity at Heaven in London on the 5th of April. Bucket list band. So going along to this, I was like super excited, man, like proper hyped up. I went in there, had an absolute blast. I was, like knowing the band kind of well, I was like, I think there was a few other bands on this show as well. I can't remember who the first band on were, and I'm not adding a second, but if I did also like nod to Nail to Obscurity who came out, who were then the second band on, they were fucking phenomenal. And then I think it was like Imperium or something like that. I can't remember who it was. Yeah. It was like a folk kind of band. And then Dark Tranquillity. And I was there for review purposes. And I was kind of like, when you're in that kind of mindset where you're on your own, you're like, let's get like 9 or 10 of these songs down. And then I'll shoot off like 4 or 5 songs from the end, like beat the rush and the trains back. But then just like being kind of immobile, being like, yeah, no, I ain't going nowhere, man. I got to watch this. I just had an absolute blast. It was the first time that made it more special. They were equally as good at Bloodstock, but it was just that whole first time thing that made me sort of go with this one. So yeah, Dark Tranquillity on my 3rd.
Of course, yes. Wasn't at that one, but to see them at Bloodstock. Don't remember a lot. I'm pretty sure it's alcohol-related reasons. They were the Thursday night headliner, weren't they?
They were.
Yeah, they were. All right, number 2 then. So this year, a show got booked, a tour that got booked. That was basically the best lineup I could ever possibly get. And it was Sugar Horse, Tusker, and the headliner, Conjurer, at the Dome in Tufnell Park on the 4th of November 2022. I haven't put all 3 bands in. I've just left it to 1.
That's what I was just thinking that. I was like, you've got to do all 3, isn't he?
No, tempting as that was. No, I've just gone with Conjurer. This is obviously Conjurer following the back off the back of Pathos, the new album, which is incredible. And, a continuing rise, which is just consistently impressive. The first time I saw this band, they're playing a Black Heart. The second time I'm seeing them outside of festivals and stuff at their own show was this gig here, and it was spectacular. The new songs sound fucking immense. I love Sugar Horse, I love Tusker, but they couldn't touch Conjurer tonight on this night. Immense. Second best gig of the show, but not number 1. Second.
Well, my second best is also back to Bloodstock. For one last time.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was waiting for that reaction.
Oh, wow.
Avatar.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, everything that you said, like, I 100% agree with. For me, I'm not trying to belittle like your experience, but for me, it may have felt even more special because it was my first time. So like, and obviously over recent years, I've become very attached to the band, like a sad puppy following them around on web streams and shit like that. But like everything you said, I 100% agree with. Like I didn't really, like, obviously I've seen live performance of them, but I've seen it online or on video or YouTube or whatever, you know what I mean? So I'd never experienced a live performance. So I knew it was stripped back, but I wouldn't really I hadn't experienced it not stripped back. So like, which is cool, kind of cool, because then I guess when I do get to see them with a full show, it's going to be even more mind blowing. But like you said, the thing, like the set list was like absolutely phenomenal, man. I loved the start of it. I felt like the whole, not just us, but the whole crowd was electric from like them starting to walk out. Everything I would expect, everything I wanted from an Avatar performance. Johannes's interaction with the crowd. Like you sort of get all these expectations in your head, and then you have the fear that they come out and they go like, "Oh, like Johannes is just going to because Bloodstock going to just do like 8 really heavy songs that no one's like from old albums, and Johannes isn't really going to interact." And it was like a stripped back show, and you're like,
yeah,
you don't really want that, and we didn't get that, and it was just absolutely amazing, man. Like, blew my mind. Could easily and was for many periods of time the first one on my list, but it didn't end there.
I'm baffled now. I can't even think what the number one is. Nope. I'm interested to see. Yeah, should know. I didn't mention it in mine, but it's kind of coming to mind there. The end of the Avatar gig had arguably what is to me the best words from a frontman who may ever spoken of, pure confidence and pure knowledge, which was, "Ladies and gentlemen, I think we just stole the show." And it was like, shit.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They didn't for me. Because my last one, my favorite show of 2022 did take place at Bloodstock. And it was early in the day, and we still had interviews later on that night, that day. So like, I've normally I'd be a bit more subdued, but this band just connects with me in such a way, and you got it, yeah, okay,
yeah, just got it.
And it was immense in that tent. It was fantastic. I'm talking about Mastiff in the Sophie stage. My fucking God, I've seen this band live before, but this was so fucking special. This was brilliant. This was fantastic. It looked like it belonged. The music was so fucking heavy. I probably did the most headbanging for that show alone. I did all bloody weekend. I was so fucking into it. Absolutely loved it. Favorite show of the year, Mastiff, Bloodstock 2022.
Yeah, they were very good. They were very
right.
All right, my number one at the Royal Albert Hall in
London
on the 16th of April. The only person, I think, who could possibly have knocked Avatar off the top spot in any given year, and that is Devin Townsend. Now, this is a bit of a strange one, right? But I had to kind of like settle on experience, right? Because Devin did 2 nights there, and it was meant to be like a completely different set each night. And if that's the case, like whoever went on the second night, like unlucky, man, because we got like all the hits, man. We got all like Spirits Will Collide, Kingdom, Strapping Young Lad songs like Love. We got like everything that you would put in if there was a Devin, like all of his stuff put together, greatest hits album. But so I don't know how like the 2 sets were that different. It must have been a completely like erratic kind of weirdness on the second night. But anyway, the thing I didn't like, the reason they weren't always number one was because it was a stripped back thing, right? Devin hadn't brought a show with him, and like that was kind of like his comical line throughout the whole sort of thing. He kept sort of sarcastically pointing out to everybody that he thought like if I didn't bring a show, it would be really cool. But looking at all of our faces, he's like, maybe that wasn't the right call. But it was all very funny, man. Like the guy is amazing, absolutely amazing. And show or not, like he is the show. You know what I mean? So like it doesn't really matter. But for me, it was my daughter's first live show, so we had purposely booked it to be like as good as possible. You know what I mean? We were at the Royal Albert Hall. We booked a box, not like on our own. There's a couple of other people in there too, but like so we had these front seats right on the edge of the balcony. He then played her 2 favorite Devin Townsend songs in Spirits Will Collide and Why, which I really wasn't expecting Why when he dropped his guitar down and just started running around the stage crooning. waving up. And although I don't think he was, at one point she was convinced, and it looked like he waved directly at her. And like that, you're sitting with somebody and you like a person and you want that person to like them too. It doesn't matter if it's your daughter or not. And the sort of beaming smile. And despite the fear of like, okay, how on earth do you up that, trying to explain to her after, not all gigs are like this, like they're not all boxes in the Royal Albert Hall.
Oh God.
Do you know what I mean? But yeah, so when I kind of wrapped it all up, I was kind of like almost tied between Avatar and Devin, with I guess the fact that it was my daughter's first gig and her reactions and all that being the bit that swung it towards Devin. So
no, all those reasons make complete sense to me. Like it's special. That first gig is incredibly special. I still remember Dan's first one. Listening to Jake and Real Big Fish. So at Shepherd's Bush Empire. So it will always stay with you.
Yeah.
But that's our 10 favorite live performances. The bands we did double up on, I think that speaks volumes about the quality of their shows this year. The Red Methods, the Ward 16s, Avatar at Bloodstock, Imperium. Yeah, there you go. They're the ones. And of course, we all did a taste as well. So, but a lot of the ones you mentioned I was at, didn't make it the top 10. They are still great shows. Jealous of that Devin Townsend one, but what you're going to do?
Yep.
What's yours? What's your 10 favorite live performances of 2022, or even just your favorite? Drop it in the comments. We'd love to read it.
Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please help us out by giving us a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. If you really liked what you saw, consider donating to keep the website and channel running by buying us a coffee via our coffee page or picking up some merch from our Big Cartel store. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as via our social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, as well as listen to our interviews via SoundCloud, Apple Music and Spotify. Just search for GBHBL. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?